Hey guys, Corey Correa here. Welcome to Blue Talks, and I hope you enjoy this video. Omar, so great to have you here. Thank you, everybody. We're doing what I'll call a live podcast in front of a live studio audience, as they used to say back in the day. So, Omar, thank you so much for joining me.
Yes.
Super excited to have you here. And as you probably heard, the way I do an interview, I usually start off by getting the guest to tell us about themselves. So, Omar, can you tell us a little bit about you and your backstory, and then we'll dive right in?
All right. Well, thank you, Corey. Very happy to be on the program. My name is Omar L. Harris. I was originally born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I spent over 20 years in the global pharmaceutical industry working in the U.S., Middle East, Latin America, and in Asia. And then after 22 years in the pharmaceutical industry, I transitioned out and created my own business, Intent Consulting, back in 2020, going on 6 years, hit the 7-figure mark last year for the first time. So really happy about that. I've also published, this is my 9th book, Grow with Whom. This is my 9th book out today, actually. So I've got 9 books out now, and really Intent Consulting is really a business around all of my passion and my strengths. So training, facilitation, executive coaching, technology, publishing, and a little bit of everything. So all the things I love to do.
So, I mean, that gives me so many, I'll call it jump off points.
There you go.
Because now what I want to know is when you say executive consulting, for example, does that mean you're working with, like, let's just say CEOs and executives around, would it be around communication skills, technology, how to use it, or like what? Because you covered a lot there, so I want to.
Yeah, so primarily I operate in the space of culture.
Okay.
And so what people don't understand is that culture is going to form with or without you as a leader. So if you intentionally form a culture, it will do what you want it to do. But if you don't do anything, it also will form by what you don't do. It's sort of like, I call it like a layer of cement when cement dries. You know what happens when cement is drying? You don't ring fence it around it. What do little kids do? They draw on it. People put names all over it. They do all kind of tic-tac-toe inside of it. That's what happens to a leader who doesn't actually purposefully protect and build their culture. They get a culture with all kind of scribbles inside of it.
I got it.
And so if you want some nice concrete, you have to purposefully and intentionally build the culture that you want.
Wow. I mean, so I want to dive in further here because for years I did customer service training. And when I did it, it was meant to be more like a keynote where it's about the why, not as much as the how. And I would come in and say, here's 4, let's call it the 4 key steps to delivering a customer experience, which in fact, obviously impacts your culture.
Yes.
But I wasn't talking specifically as much about the culture of the company.
Right.
I was more trying to show them, here's a system you can use to deliver customer experience. In fact, if I were to go back in time, I would have added more elements or brought somebody else in to complement that, to talk more about culture.
Yep.
What I want to ask you is, when we look at organizations like Disney, Starbucks, these companies seem to have, what you said, the CEOs seem to have built the culture they want to have.
Yep.
And when you go to Disney on site, you can feel it, I feel, even as a guest, or what do they call it? As a guest, I think. As a guest going there, you can feel it when you walk through the doors. How often do you think, or how much do you think organizations like that spend time, not just they built the culture in the beginning, but continuing to keep that culture alive?
I think that's, you hit on 2 really important points. I think that some companies and some leaders have been very intentional about building their culture, but then you have to make sure the culture outlasts the leader. So one of my favorite examples of this is 11 Madison Park here in New York City. The former general manager wrote a book called Unreasonable Hospitality. And in that book, he talks about how he cemented the culture of 11 Madison Park it went from a 0-star to a 3-star Michelin star restaurant in 5 years, and the number 1 restaurant in the world in 5 years. And so what I found so fascinating about what he did was, when I read the book, it was 2022. He had left the company in 2019. He's actually the executive producer of The Bear. And I went to the restaurant for the first time last February. And I wrote him a note on LinkedIn saying, man, you wrote this book in 2022. I'm in your restaurant in 2025 and nothing has changed. That is what I mean by building a culture that will last. It survived him. He's been gone for 3 years and people are still operating with the exact same principles that he put in there.
Wow. So I read this book. I think it's called, don't quote me, but I think it's called The Walmart Way. And it was written by, I want to say, the CFO.
Right.
It wasn't by the CEO, and it wasn't by, what's his name, Sam Walton?
Sam Walton, yeah.
It wasn't by that team, but he worked maybe 2 levels below.
Right.
And he shared this story, and I'm curious your thoughts on the leaders leading by example. But he shared this story that they went into a store. And I think I remember the name, but I won't even say the name. It doesn't matter. But they went into this store, and like a whole crew of them would go in to analyze the way another store operated, like a different company.
Yeah.
And they would walk in, and they were like, what did you notice at their meeting after? And they were like, oh, you had to kick the boxes out of the way. This was horrible. Customer service was bad. And Sam Walton said, yeah, but did you notice their jewelry rack? Like, that's what ours should look like. And basically, he tried to show them, even if you see all the bad things they're doing, they're still doing something better than us.
Right.
And we need to focus on that instead of all the bad things they're doing, because we're not going to gain anything by knowing you have to kick the boxes around if we don't have to do that in ours.
Right.
We're only going to gain by learning what they're doing well.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a great example of culture. Am I wrong with that? Like, he gave it them, all those leaders, because it was all the leaders with them, the idea of we want a culture of improving versus focusing on the weaknesses of another place.
Well, the initial culture of any organization stems from the leader's obsessions. Whatever the leader is obsessed about is what the culture will be implanted into the organization is. So if you're obsessed with quality, you'll have a quality culture. Jeff Bezos is famously obsessed with customer excellence. And so the entire organization of Amazon is organized around this idea of customer excellence, customer experience. And so it really comes down to what that Steve Jobs is obsessed with, was obsessed with seamless connection between hardware and software. And so these ethos of those leaders, what gets put into the culture initially of the organization. The question is, can you hold on to it?
So I'm just rhyming off a few examples I heard that really speak to this to me. Another one I heard about was it Michael Eisner with Disney?
Disney, yeah.
So the CEO of Disney was out one day walking around Disney. This is a story in a book that I read about their culture. It was actually, the book was called Disney's Culture or something. And they talked about how he was walking around and he was wearing a suit and he leaned down to pick up garbage. And somebody random guest that's visiting Disney said, oh my gosh, even their sanitation workers wear suits. And then Michael Eisner quipped, and this is the joke, is because Disney has 55,000 cast members, I think they call them, employees. And he goes, yeah, and we have 54,999 of them. Not including himself. What he was saying is every person at Disney knows they're supposed to pick up the garbage or the litter.
Yeah.
So it's, again, a culture thing. But if the CEO is still doing that, and that's like 5 CEOs removed from Walt Disney, and he's still doing that, I think that's a good example. But that's a daily thing. You have to keep that mindset.
So what I call that is the 4 Ps. And so basically what I train my clients on is the alignment between your principles, your priorities, your processes, and your practices. And so a lot of time, your principles and your practices are misaligned. So what do you say you're about and what you're actually about don't make any sense. Or your priorities are taking your processes out of alignment. But what matters is, do the words on the website, do the words you say to the street, do the words you say to the public, do they align with how you actually behave? And so I audit companies on their principles, their priorities, their processes, and their practices, and show the executives exactly where their cultural pain points are.
So I have 2 last questions. One is, in your books, I know we focused on the culture because I figured we were better to go one direction, but do you have one of your books that shares all that if people want to learn more about that without maybe diving fully in yet?
Yeah, so I've been evolving my cultural lens through all of my books. I mean, so the first book was Leaderboard, the DNA of High Performance Teams, which is all about how do you coalesce a culture really, really quickly. Get a team from forming, storming, norming to performing like in a record time. And then in my later books, I talked about the 4 Ps. And now I'm evolving culture with W.H.O.M, which is basically a culture where everybody brings their best self to work, create this field where hierarchy no longer dominates the conversation. But what it's about is how we show up and work together, our collective heart, our optimism, and our maturity to handle what we're going to be handling together. And that culture is a culture that is more active. Every day you can live it, you can observe it, you can measure it, you can analyze it, and you can calibrate it and tweak it.
I love that because it reminds me of the book by Robin Sharma, the monk who, the leader who had no title.
Exactly.
And the idea that everybody can be a leader even if you don't have that title. So
lead from where you are.
Yeah, I love it. Lead from where you are. Yeah. So my last official question and unofficial is how we can learn more.
Yep.
And then what would be your parting words of advice, whether around culture or anything else that you speak on?
So I would say OmarLHarris.com. growwithwhom.com, that's W.H.O.M, are the best places to reach me. On LinkedIn, Omar L. Harris as well. And the last bit of advice is, once again, that high character in one begets high character in all. So when you choose to show up as the best version of yourself, you give permission for everyone around you to show up as the best version of themselves.
Omar, it's been an absolute pleasure. With your permission, a to be continued.
Yeah, appreciate you.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.